Winner says, if it's to be, it's up to me. Loser says, I can't help it. Folks, we all have heard many self-made success stories. Have you ever heard a self-made failure story? Probably not. They always blame somebody else. You ask any failure, success is a matter of luck. They'll always tell you that. I've been asked, success is tough. I say, of course it is, but you try failing if that's easy. I'll tell you, failing is a lot tougher than success. Going back many, many years, I was in Toronto. I heard a story of two brothers. One was a drug addict, drunk and used to beat up his family, and his blood brother had a great business, wonderful family, highly respected all over. Some people wanted to find out how could two brothers of the same family be so apart. So they went to the druggie and asked him, how come you do all the wrong things? Where do you get your motivation from? He said, my father. He said, what about your father? He said, when I was a little boy, he said, my father was a drug addict, drunk, and used to beat up my family. That's what I used to see. That's what I am. What do you expect me to be? So they went to his brother, who was doing everything right, and asked him, where do you get your motivation from? And guess what he said? The same thing, my father. He said, what about my father? What about your father? He said, when I was a little boy and I used to see my dad do all the wrong things, I made up my mind, I'll never be like him. They are both drawing strength from the same source. One is using for the positive, and the other is using for the negative. Many times we think we're taking the easier way, which ends up to be the tougher way. One time, there was a lark sitting in the forest singing, and a man came by with a box full of worms. He was taking them to the marketplace to exchange them for the feather. The lark said, look, I have to hunt my own worms every day. I have lots of feathers. Why don't you give me the worms, and I'll pluck and give you the feather. It'll save me hunting, save you going. Seemed like a good trade. And the lark got the worms and plucked the feather, gave it to the man. Next day the same thing happened. The third day the same thing happened. The fourth day, till a day came, the lark had no more feathers to give. It couldn't hunt its own worms. Stopped singing very soon. The lark died. What is the moral of the story? Very simple. What the lark thought it was taking the easier way ended up to be the tougher way. Folks, that's the key. There are no shortcuts in life, and many times when we start taking shortcuts, we start compromising our values. Successful winners accept responsibility. Losers always blame someone else. They play the blame game. You know what the blame game is? My parents did it, teacher did it, company did it, economy did it, country did it, somebody else did it, my star did it, horoscope did it, fate did it, I never did it. They will never accept responsibility. Folks, success is a matter of laws, and it's not a matter of luck. And the first law of success says, it's called the law of cause and effect, which says, in the vernacular, the law of sowing and reaping. Our mind is like a garden. If you plant good seeds, you'll have a good garden. But if you don't plant good seeds, something will grow, and they will be weeds, because nature abhors a vacuum. Either we have a positive or we have a negative. There is no neutral. When I wrote my book, You Can Win, I had two nephews. They were 12 and 14, and they were playing tennis like professionals. So one day my cousin came over and said, Shiv, this game is getting very expensive. These kids are going through the racket, the ball, the coach, the loan fees. The game is getting very expensive. I said, getting expensive as compared to what? It's relative. But then I said, if it's so expensive, why don't you have them stop playing tennis? But tell me, when they come back from school at 1 or 3, they have all the time at hand and all the energy in their body. If they will not play tennis, what will they do? There was a silence for 30 seconds. He said, I think it's cheaper this way, I'll continue. Why? Folks, our mind is like a garden. If you don't plant good seeds, weeds automatically come in. Either we have a positive or we have a negative. There's no neutral here. But you go ask a farmer. Even if you do plant good seeds, weeds still come, don't they? And there are two ways of getting rid of weeds. One is the lawnmower way. You mow the lawn, you chop the head, and you think they're gone, but are they really? But the second way is you take a sharp object, get on your knees, and plug it out of the ground. It's a tougher way, but a more permanent way. That is what we are talking in terms of the law of sowing and reaping. Folks, the law of sowing and reaping says, 1, you must have the desire to sow. 2, desire alone won't do it, you must sow too. 3, you sow tomatoes, you're not going to get potatoes. 4, when you sow, you don't reap the fruit the same day. There's a gestation period, but the kind of world we're living today, everybody wants to reap right the moment they sow. It doesn't work that way. There's got to be a gestation waiting period in life. And 5, it says you must sow first. You can't reap before you sow. But the kind of world we're living today, people want to reap before they sow, and it doesn't work that way at all. You can't go to the fireplace and say, give me heat and I put wood. You got to put in wood before you get the heat. You got to sow first. And then 6, when you sow a seed, you don't reap a fruit. You harvest is manyfold. When you sow a positive seed, you harvest is manyfold in the positive. And when you sow a negative seed, you harvest is manyfold in the negative too. Comes down to very clear the law of sowing and reaping, which is what brings us down to the last point, which says either we are part of the solution or we are part of the problem. And if we are not part of the solution, then we are the problem. And let me revert back to the law of sowing and reaping, which says, how does it translate in our real life? It says, you sow a thought, you reap an action. You sow an action, you reap a habit. You sow a habit, you reap a character. And you sow a character, you reap a destiny. Start again. You sow a thought, you reap an action. An action does not come without a thought process. The thought process may be conscious or subconscious, that's different, but positively there was a thought behind it. How many times you hear people saying, success or money has gone into their head, look at that person, they become arrogant. Reverse it. There are many people, when they become successful or they become rich, wealthy, they become humble. Has success or money brought arrogance or humility? Absolutely not. It has only brought to surface whatever was hiding before. That's all. Sow a thought, you reap an action. Sow an action, you reap a habit. Any action you do repeatedly becomes a habit. Folks, right from childhood, all our parents said the same thing. Form good habits, and habits form characters. Because 90% of our behavior is habitual. We never think, we just act. You got good habits, you're a positive character. You got bad habits, you're a negative character, because 90% of behavior is habitual. And good habits are hard to come by, but they're easy to live with. Bad habits come easy, but they're hard to live with. And before you got the habits got you. Have you heard this phrase which says, practice makes perfect? Absolutely not true. Practice only makes permanent whatever you practice. Only perfect practice makes perfect. Some people keep practicing their mistakes and they become perfect in making mistakes. Every time they do it, they mess up because that's what they have practiced. Folks, you sow a habit, you reap a character. And you sow a character, you reap a destiny. Important thing is, thoughts are causes. Can we choose our thoughts? And if we can choose our thoughts, we can control our destiny. And that is really the bottom line. We can all choose our destiny by choosing our thoughts.